Welcome to the Health by Haven podcast. I'm your host, Haven Quinlan. If you're a multi-passionate wellness enthusiast, then you're in the right place. I'm obsessed with learning as much as I can about the wellness world, and I want to share that with you. Each episode will dive into various aspects of health and wellness through inspiring and informative guest interviews with some solo episodes thrown in. Tune in for all things health, and let's have some fun, shall we? Today on the Health by Haven podcast, I sit down with Parker Brook, the founder of Lovebird Cereal. Now, Parker and I met in New York City at a coconut cult pop-up event where different CPG founders talked about their healthier for you food brands. And I was just really struck by his story about when his daughter was born, wanting to clean up the food aisles for her, and in particular, cereal, something that many children eat every single day. In the episode, Parker and I go down several rabbit holes of food ingredients, food labels, different third-party verifications and certifications that food brands can hold. We talk about toxins, heavy metals, pesticides, things that you want to avoid in your diet, as well as some tips for busy parents on how to make sure they're nourishing their children with whole foods and healthier packaged foods to support their growth and their daily life. I really loved this conversation with Parker. It was so interesting to hear more about the ins and outs of Lovebird Cereal, and sounds like he has a very exciting product coming up soon. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Parker of Lovebird Cereal to the Health by Haven podcast. Parker, thank you so much for joining us today on the Health by Haven podcast. I am so thrilled to get to dive in a little bit deeper to hear about your story and about starting Lovebird Cereal.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. So to give listeners a little bit of a background, I actually heard from you first at a founders panel in New York City that was hosted by the Coconut Cult at their pop-up, and so many great brands represented there, but all with kind of the shared love and purpose of bringing cleaner, healthier, more supportive foods into the packaged foods industry. And so for people listening who have never met you, who haven't heard of Lovebird Cereal yet, can you kind of give us like a little bit of your background, and then we can kind of get into how the food brand came to be?
Definitely. So, hi, everyone. I used to work at a company you may have heard of called General Mills that made everything from Cheerios to Yoplait to Nature Valley to Betty Crocker to whatever, you name it. And while I was there, I was going through my own food as medicine health journey. I had some health issues I was trying to figure out with real food, and made a lot of great progress with that, and was trying to turn around the types of products that a company like that would make. Became clear that wasn't going to happen. And then I became a father. My daughter was born and sort of lit a fire under me in terms of what am I going to do. And so when she was born, I actually wound up leaving to go clean up junk food. I wasn't quite sure what it was going to be. But as I dug into how I could make the biggest impact, I loved cereal, and cereal is the number one breakfast for kids. And historically, it just hadn't had any good new products. It's all cartoon character filled junk with ultra processed sugars and grains. And so it felt like it was a good opportunity to clean it up. And selfishly, I just wanted to eat cereal again. I have a ton of nostalgia for it and a lot of fond memories, but I wanted to make it with super clean ingredients.
Okay, I was going to ask, did you grow up having cereal for breakfast every day?
Yeah, it was, I was definitely one of those kids, every morning, big boxes of cereal, probably dumping sugar on top of the cereal too. But now my kids don't have to do that. They eat Lovebird.
Yeah, which is incredible. I know I grew up on like the big cereal brands as well, and I can actually remember like my mom eating Raisin Bran because it's like the quote like healthier option, and I would be a kid and I'd pick all the raisins out and I would be the kid eating them, but because they were covered in sugar. So, yeah, I can certainly relate to that as well. And then, when I grew up and I started being more conscious of what I was putting in my body and looking at ingredient labels and realizing like, oh my gosh, for like whatever 20 years of my life, I have been starting my day with this massive like processed food and sugar spike. And that's obviously not setting people up for success to start their days with that. So can you talk to us a little bit about when you started formulating? What ingredients were you testing out for this cereal? What were you like, yes, this is something I definitely want to include? And what are some things that maybe consumers who don't really know how to read labels should potentially be avoiding?
Yeah, if you even take a step back, I believe about 60 to 70% of our diet is ultra processed food, right? And for kids, it's on the higher end of that. And so as I was looking at cleaning up junk food, it really, as you said, started with the ingredients, right? You look at the ingredients and they're historically really bad, right? They're essentially the cheapest thing they can put into the product to still have it taste good, but also for big companies to make a lot of margin off of. And so as I looked at cereal, it was sort of like a Gwyneth Paltrow detox, right? Like it
Yeah.
was remove the refined ingredients, like refined grain, which is ultra processed, usually have GMOs or glyphosate for some of the industrial farmed crops, and also refined sugar, which is pretty much the same process. And so those were the two big ones that are in cereal and really a lot of packaged food. I think for people who are not as familiar with ingredients or how to read labels, you obviously flip over the package and look at it, and they're ranked in order of how much is in there. So the first ingredient is probably going to be oftentimes 60 to 70% of what you're eating. And then so on and so forth down the list. And then at the end of the list, there's a lot of questionable things that are added, like preservatives, artificial or natural flavors, which are pretty much the same thing, which is something we can talk about later as
Yeah.
well. So really looking at the first and last ingredients are key. So as I was looking at cleaning up cereal, it really just focused on whole food ingredients from the earth that are organic, that are third party tested for glyphosate, which is a synthetic pesticides that have been linked to some gut microbiome issues and cancer in some cases. I believe the parent company was Monsanto and is now Bayer, has paid out over $12 billion in legal settlements, but they still
Gosh.
insist that it's safe.
Uh,
Go figure.
yeah.
And so it's really just making sure all the stuff that shouldn't be in your food is not in your food, and then replacing it with real whole food ingredients from the earth, third party tested and organic. And so I use organic buckwheat, which is a super seed with complete protein and prebiotic fiber, and then also cassava that adds more prebiotic fiber. Both of those are kind of feed the good bacteria in your gut and help improve your microbiome. And then just sweetened with nature, so organic honey and a little bit of organic coconut sugar, so unrefined sugar sources. Because I don't really believe in the whole zero sugar thing. I think sugar has a place in our lives. I think it just has become so prominent and in everything, and also the type of sugar has become so processed that it's so much more potent than it was before. And so just using real food from the earth. So it sounds simple, but it was incredibly challenging to pull off.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I cannot imagine even starting like where do you even start with, finding a facility and all of the things. I'm sure like your background helped you, but still certainly a huge undertaking. But I love the sentiment of like it doesn't have to be super complicated. You have very minimal ingredients, but these are the foods, that'll fuel your body for the day and start you off on the right foot. And so,
Mhm.
can we talk a little bit more about the third party testing for people who are like, what does that mean? Like why might that be something that's important to look for in your food label?
Yeah, so third party testing, I think some brands claim that, and then there's organizations that own certifications, right? So if you look at the non GMO project with the butterfly on the box or USDA organic, certified, which is through the government, right? So those are some of the more popular ones. I think ones that have popped up are like glyphosate residue free project, and then a whole host of things that are like clean, different labels like that. I do my own third-party testing. That's some of the strictest I've seen. So we test for heavy metals, which are important because they're in our food, but you should be mindful of them. Glyphosate, which we've talked about already, gluten, the GF, like the gluten-free certifying bodies usually allow, it's under 10 parts per million, but there still could be some in it. So we test it to make sure that there's none in it, which is important, especially as you deal with, the making of the food, because there could be some cross contamination. So we just take it a level deeper. So we do our own third-party testing. We still are USDA organic certified. And that also means you're non-GMO certified. It's kind of the same thing. So that's kind of how I view it. I think it's important from a consumer or shopper lens to make sure that someone's actually done the work. And I have found, being on the big side of food brands and now kind of starting my own thing and being very small and have grown over time, is that some of the smaller brands are actually doing things that are like a little shady. Like they'll label, glyphosate free, but never do the testing, or they'll say that this ingredient is in their product and use tapioca, but label it as cassava, right? So I think it's important to do your research and figure out what brands are telling the truth. And those third-party accreditations usually help with that. And I think brands that stand behind their product will be happy to send you their test results. And so ones that don't, sometimes there's a good reason for that. Sometimes, or most times, there's not. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents on third-party certifications.
Yeah, well, that's super helpful to know. And actually, I feel like my mind was just blown recently when I learned a little bit about the requirements on packaging and how, like, the requirements on your nutrition labels may get to be in a bit of a range versus like, this is the exact amount. Can you go into that a little bit more when you're mentioning like there's maybe some companies doing a little bit of shady things, like what's something to look out for that might not be accurately labeled?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think I'm aware of what you're referencing that was kind of popular recently. And essentially on your nutritional facts panel, there's a couple different components. One is like the macros, right? Like the amount of calories, protein, fiber, fat, sugar, added sugar. Then there's the ingredients, right? And so ingredients, unless you are USDA organic certified, aren't really checked. It's sort of like Scout's honor, right? Until maybe you get big enough and someone, does tests and asks for it. So that's one to be sort of wary about. I think what you're referencing is the 20% plus or minus allowance on things like protein or sugar or fat or the macros. And some of that's understandable, right? Like there is some variation, especially when you're using real food ingredients. Like not every harvest of strawberries is the same, right? Not every harvest of buckwheat is the same. And so what you'll find is a little less variability in the ultra processed ingredients because they've been refined down to something easily controllable and less natural. So the more natural it is, there's more allowance. But I think there are brands that lean into that a little bit. They're like, oh, we actually have 10 grams of protein in our product, but with the 20% allowance, we can claim 12 because it's still within that boundary. And really nobody's doing like actual testing on those things. So it's sort of the brand's risk tolerance. I think if you remember the cookies, Lenny and Larry's, like they're like pretty poor ingredient protein cookies back in the day, but they were actually scheduled to get acquired. And it was like $100+ million deal. And the acquiring company canceled the deal because they tested the protein amount and found that it was like half as much as they were claiming.
Wow.
And so as a consumer, it's just hard. I think the nature of that rule is well intended. I just think that some people take advantage of it. And which is why it's important to find brands you trust, which is also hard, right? Like everybody says, trust me, trust me. But I think brands, and we met at the Coconut Cult lab, right? And I think that was full of brands with founders that are intimately involved in their products, that are actively consuming their products. So
Yeah.
like that to me is a good screen, is like, do I know the founder and do they still eat, or do they eat the product at all? And if they're one of
Yeah.
these founders that are like, hey, I found a great business opportunity to corner the market and do like protein Pop Tarts, and I don't really care about ingredients. I'm just trying to get rich and sell my company. And it's like, all right, like that's a red flag, right? Like that's
Right.
somebody who's in it for a short term, wants to make profit and really just wants to sell their company. But there's a lot of founders out there, like myself included, that want to build and be a part and drive that change, and are committed to that, right? So there's no shortcuts in our product. Unfortunately, as a consumer, as a shopper, you just don't really know with other brands, but you got to do your best. And oddly enough, some of the bigger brands like, Siete got purchased by PepsiCo, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think they did some ingredient changes to like true up their labels. But ironically, when big food acquires these small brands, they actually make sure everything's labeled correctly because they have more risk and more money to get sued for, where these
Mm.
lawyers aren't going to go after a small brand that doesn't have a lot of money. So there is some, ironic transparency with the
Yeah.
bigger food brands that acquire some of these smaller brands.
Yeah, no kidding. I never would have thought about that. But like to what you're saying, I feel like, everyone talks about the evils and the downfalls of social media a lot nowadays. There's no denying that it takes a toll on people's mental health and it zaps up our time, but there's pros to it as well. And I think one of the cool parts about social media is now, as consumers, like you said, we can look up these brands. I mean, really, I don't know of a brand now that doesn't have a social presence, and, look at their founder and like see, like you said, are they super involved? Do they personally have a buy-in and a care about the product? Of course, it's a business and like you're there to make money, but like what was the driving factor behind starting it and everything? So that's kind of a fun place to start for people as well if they're like getting overwhelmed by
Mhm.
all the different brands out there.
Yeah, it is overwhelming at times, but I like to keep it simple, like our ingredients and some of the messaging I put out on Instagram is just like keep it simple, read labels, do the best you can. You can't stress about every little thing. Some of the stuff we just talked about is some of the minutia or small things that what can you do until it becomes public, right?
Yeah.
So try to operate from a place of keep it simple, eat real food, and get sleep and exercise, and health doesn't have to be so complicated.
Oh, you are like speaking to the depths of my soul. I could not agree more. As the air starts to get a little cooler and cold and flu season sneaks up, let's talk about a little self care magic to help your body stay strong and your spirit lifted. At Avoda Massage Therapy in Columbia, South Carolina, you can experience red light LED therapy with massage, and trust me, it's as good as it sounds. Red and near infrared light work deep in your cells to boost circulation, calm inflammation, and support your immune system. Pair that with a soothing massage, and you've got the perfect blend of relaxation and rejuvenation. It's warmth, light, and healing all in one session, leaving you relaxed, recharged, and ready to glow your way through the season. So treat yourself to some radiant wellness. Book your red light LED therapy with massage at Avoda Massage Therapy in Columbia, or learn more at avodamassagetherapy.com, because staying well should always feel this good. So I love that you had a kind of driving force of starting the brand because your daughter was born. And so I know we have parents out there listening to the podcast. What are some things that you might recommend to them as far as, healthy food products, or, I don't know, tips for like busy parents on the go when you're wanting to like make sure your children are getting quality nutrition?
Yeah, that is a big question, and I don't know if I have all the answers. And if there's a parent out there that does have all the answers, please email me. I think for me, as I mentioned, just keeping it simple, right? And I think somewhere along the line, like big food convinced people that dieting should taste bad, or like
Mm.
dieting like is a quick fix or a thing. And now like eating healthy is considered like dieting. And like some friends will be like, oh, you're weird not letting your kids have like nerds or whatever food dye candy out there. And
Yeah.
recently my daughter started playing soccer, and some of the, post soccer snacks are like, what is it, Halloween? Like we're trick-or-treating and giving our kids candy right after they played a sport.
Yeah.
Although playing a sport is kind of loosely at age 6, but kind of picking grass and running around a little bit. But I don't know. I would just say, like, don't be so hard on yourself. You cannot control everything. I think try to make food fun to the extent possible. Involve your child in the cooking of the food. Like, make it a game or make it fun. Don't just be like, slide a plate across the table and be like, here's dinner, like, finish your plate. Which sometimes you have to do. Life's busy. I get it. But just like have them be involved. Always try like at least one new item on the plate, along with some familiar items. I think what's also helpful, and I think I posted or shared it recently in the past few weeks, but someone put out a really cool, like eating the colors, how to talk to kids about it. So like, hey, like tomatoes are good for heart health.
Mm.
Bananas are good for your energy. Green vegetables are good for your brain. And talk about it as like superfoods. I think my kids get
Yeah.
excited. I would say with all of this still, like they still want crackers sometimes, and I try to just get the best crackers, clean crackers, like a Simple Mills,
Oh
or
yeah.
Sunny just came out with some, or Nuffs, that was at the Coconut Cult lab as
Mm-hmm.
well, are great. I think the beauty of being a parent in today's day and age is there's so many, there's awareness and has built demand for cleaner products. And there's a lot of clean swaps for the things that you used to eat, from fruit
Mm-hmm.
snacks to even, I think there's even clean Pop Tarts out there, to cereal, obviously what Lovebird makes. So it's been easier. And if my daughter goes to a friend's house, I'm not going to be like super controlling over what she can or can't eat, but just
Mm-hmm.
make sure she's aware of it, and talk about food openly, and what food fuels your body versus what food is just a treat. And I think they get that. They're like, hey, I want to be strong. I want to be fast. My son's like obsessed with being fast. And so I'm like, oh, this food's going to make you so fast. So, I mean, just make it fun. I wouldn't get too detailed or controlling over it, because there's only so much you can do. But I would simplify it as like, hey, keep your pantry clean, keep the food you feed your kids at your house clean. I do pack my children lunch, and make sure that it's filling and nutritious and stuff they'll actually eat. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to that. But if anybody has all the answers, please let me know.
I'm not a parent, but I feel like every parent is in the same boat. It's like, if you have the inside scoop,
Yeah,
let me
yeah.
know. But I like that sentiment a lot. And I feel like it comes up in different facets on this podcast a lot, is like control what you can control, but then try not to stress out about what's out of your hands as well. Because
Mhm.
obviously, stress is not great for our health either. So I like that sentiment with children and their food as well. Um, I'm curious about all the different flavors that you have of the cereal, how those came to be, and what your favorite is, if you could pick a favorite.
Yeah, I think my favorite is just honey. At night, I do love cocoa, and we've done great work to make cocoa taste really, really great. And I like cinnamon too. My daughter loves the fruity flavor, which, believe it or not, is actually made with just real strawberry powder, not artificial or natural flavors. So it's one of the, I think, the only fruity flavored cereal that does not have artificial or natural flavors,
It's
which is
amazing.
what brings all of that fruity flavor. Plus, they use some like cane sugar or whatever. But those are my favorite flavors. We just launched a protein granola that's like really good.
Oh,
So it's like
amazing.
double the protein and 25% less sugar than a granola that rhymes with dearly, dearly Elizabeth, dearly Elizabeth. But yeah, I just love granola, and a lot of it's just like full of sugar, even the clean stuff, and like low in protein. So I was like, oh, I want to make something for myself. and it tastes great. And I think that's what I try to do with all of my flavors is, as I mentioned before, like real food should actually taste good. Like there should be no
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice compared to some of the junkier ingredient stuff. And so I try to make it where you have clean label ingredients plus great taste that you enjoy eating because food is connection, food is life. Um, and your kids also eat because I think we've all been there. I think we've all, whether or not you have kids, have tried to find something that looked healthy and you've tried it. You're like, I guess I like wheatgrass now. But yeah, I mean, all the flavors are great. We're working on a new product that should be launching in January that
Oh.
I'm super excited about. So more to come on that, but I'm really excited about that one. But yeah, I mean, it's just simple flavors. I think a lot of crazy brands out there do a bunch of crazy flavors, and I just wanted to keep it simple, like honey, cinnamon, cocoa, and fruity. If anybody has great ideas on a new flavor, let me know. We're always looking for something new.
Yeah, well, I love the kind of nostalgic flavors. I mean, like as we speak, I have a box of your cinnamon cereal in my pantry because every once in a while I just want some cereal, you know? It brings you back to childhood and like Cinnamon Life was always my favorite cereal as a kid. And so, or like the Honey Nut Cheerios, you know, I kind of feel like that's what I'm eating, but I'm also nourishing my body. So I love that. But I didn't know about your granola, so I'm gonna have to go and try that out as well. It's very exciting. Okay, can we talk a little bit about, I know you mentioned this, natural and artificial flavors for people who don't know, because I won't lie, like years ago before I really started getting into the whole health world, like I didn't know natural flavors wasn't just like, oh, it's a natural flavor from like, you know, what you would think like a fruit or something.
Yeah, I mean, you see brands on the front of the box be like naturally flavored, and you're like, oh, that sounds great. That's better
Yeah.
than like artificially flavored. I think the nuance here is the only difference between an artificial flavor and a natural flavor is the source material. So, an artificial flavor is often derived from petroleum or crude oil, heavily refined, and they use that to generate an artificial flavor with up to 200 different co-ingredients that they use in a very intensive processing steps. I think it's anywhere from 6 to 20 different steps to get to one flavor. And so I remember when I was at, the big food company I used to work at, like we'd go to these flavor houses and it's like a complete science lab, right? It's everybody in white coats with beakers and testing things. And even we as the big brand, and I remember asking one of our lawyers, I'm like, well, what's actually in this natural flavor? Is like, we don't know, we don't want to know,
Oh
right?
my
Because there's
gosh.
liability there.
Hmm.
um, I would say they typically use a small amount of the food you're eating, and it's something that I try to avoid. So if there is a food product that doesn't have it that also meets my criteria, like I will choose that over the one that has it for sure. It's still some products I eat with them, definitely no artificial flavors. But natural flavors, they can still be derived from things like tree bark, or I think of vanilla flavors derived from the anal glands of a beaver
Oh
through
God.
processing steps, right? And then some more natural things like a lemon peel and things like that. So the source material is different. All the other steps are exactly the same. So even a natural flavor can contain up to 200 different ingredients. I think the world of flavors are interesting. I think at a high level, there's artificial versus natural, but then there's organic flavors. There's flavors that name the source material, like organic lemon flavor. Those are a little bit nuanced. I would say for me, avoid artificial flavors. Natural flavors, like depends on what it is, but I try to avoid it whenever possible. And then if they label it as organic or name the actual source material, like lemon, then I think it's slightly better than just saying like natural flavors, which could mean anything.
Hmm.
So at least with like organic, they're not using hexane and harsh chemical solvents to get to that aroma that they put in the food, because it's really not something you taste with your tongue. It's a smell. It's like
Mm.
it really should be called natural fragrance. It's
Yeah.
like the things in like the pine tree air fresheners is like what they're using in food, right? So um, that's my 2 cents. I think the one watch out I have with any natural flavor is they're there to convey flavor, which kind of tricks your brain if it's not getting the thing it thinks it's getting. But I think the one risk that nobody really talks about is that it masks any off notes. So any notes of rancidity, which our bodies are super tuned into like food, right? So if something tastes
Yeah.
bad, it's probably something you shouldn't eat. And so if you've ever opened a bag of anything and you taste it and it tasted spoiled or rancid, when you have natural flavors in that product, it makes it very difficult to discern whether or not that product's gone bad. So you could be eating things that have oxidized and have gotten stale, and things like coconut oil or any sort of oil that's rancid can cause some damage to your body or inflammation to your body through the oxidized oils. And so just something to watch out for. Not a lot of people talk about that, but I would just say like I'm extra cautious with natural flavors or artificial flavors. Natural flavors are better than artificial flavors for sure, and there's levels to it, like we discussed. But I think in general, if you can avoid them, great. If your favorite whatever has them and it's like your thing you eat once a week, like great. I think as
Hmm.
we even mentioned earlier about simplicity, I kind of look at my food in terms of like, all right, what are the things I eat all the time? Like, right? Like I think we all have some go-tos, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a quick lunch or a quick breakfast or whatever you're making for dinner at home. Um, so I try to keep most of the things I eat super clean, super pure. And if I go out somewhere, like maybe, it's okay. I'm not going to be like that controlling over it. But I'll try to pick the best options I can. And I think with natural flavors, it's sort of that way, right? Like there's some things like, even, a poppy or Olipop I'll have once in a while. But it's not like a regular thing for me.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good piece of advice as well. Is like the things that you're consuming a lot, make sure they're clean. But
Mhm.
then if you're indulging every once in a while on something, like don't stress about it too much. What's for dinner? The constant question that just keeps coming up day after day. The want to prioritize your health while working a demanding job, raising a family, juggling a side hustle while trying to get enough sleep, maintain a social life, and still have time to do the things you love. The intention to plan out healthy meals for the coming week. And then life happens and things slip through the cracks. And often you're left at the bottom of your to-do list. And so is eating well. Even though you know what to do, even though you know consuming nourishing foods will help you feel your best, and yet you just can't seem to get a grasp on your nutrition. I know the feeling. It is so incredibly frustrating and defeating, trying and failing to keep all the balls in the air. And that's why I built the Dinner Club, a meal planning service just for you in 2026. If you're tired of trying and failing to plan and execute healthy meals and snacks for yourself and your loved ones, I want to help you. Each Friday, I'll deliver next week's meal plan and corresponding grocery list straight to your inbox. And the best news, it's only $33.33 a month. So for $1 a day, you can eliminate decision fatigue around meal planning, try new recipes, making mealtime fun again, and consume balanced meals full of protein, fiber, complex carbohydrates, and healthy fats so you feel energized throughout the day and avoid spikes and crashes in your blood sugar. And as a thank you for being a Health by Haven podcast listener, I want to give you 2 weeks free as a trial. All you have to do is go to healthbyhaven.substack.com/HXHpod to redeem your 2-week free trial when you subscribe monthly or annually. That's healthbyhaven.substack.com/HXHpod, or use the link in the show notes to redeem your 2 free weeks. We talked a little bit about pesticides, but as far as like toxins, heavy metals, I know you said you third-party test for this, so I want to talk about that. And then I also want to talk about, a shelf-stable product will have something in it to keep it fresh for longer. And so things to look for and things to avoid in that as well.
Yeah, so third-party testing, it's an interesting question. It really depends on where you're coming from in terms of what you should prioritize. But I think anything that's been added to our food supply in the last 50 years, I try to avoid because there's really no reason for it. A lot of advocates for a lot of these additives, like a glyphosate that essentially helps the yield on our crops so farmers make more profit, but they already have government subsidies to keep, you know, their price low and ultra competitive. That's why you see corn and everything. That's why you see wheat and everything. So you see soy and everything, right? And that's why you've seen the, you know, prevalence and explosion of seed oils in our food, right? Like it is the
Mm.
cheapest oil to put in your food. And so for me, I try to avoid things that are on that kind of GMO list, so like industrial agricultural products like a corn, wheat, soy. If you can get organic versions of that, that means they're not GMO. They don't use glyphosate. There still could be some trace amounts due to the processing and handling, but I think in general, organic, I would say almost means more in packaged food. Like there's a lot more
Mm.
that it does because they don't allow food dyes. They don't allow certain chemical solvents. They don't allow certain additives and preservatives. And so it's sort of a shortcut to like, is this clean, right? And like the processing of it, is it clean? Because there's a lot of things that are not listed on the label that you might find used in the making of the food, especially as we talk about packaged food. But if it's organic, they can't use that, right? There's certain ingredients that you can't use with an organic certification. I think the certification part is key because if it's not USDA certified, it could be just some small brand or medium sized brand just calling it organic, but it still could be made in a way that would not meet that standard. And yes, it's expensive to carry a USDA organic seal, but I find value in it because you know the ingredients are correct, you know it's followed this protocol, and you know it's probably much cleaner than anything that's not organic in packaged food format. So that's to me like the ultimate shortcut with
Mm.
food is organic and packaged food. I think in produce and stuff, people do like the dirty dozen. EWG puts out a great list to help minimize exposure, and also, you don't have to buy organic avocados, right? They have essentially a cover. You don't eat the peel, so anything you eat the skin of, like grapes or like spinach, strawberries, you'll probably want to buy organic. But if you're not eating in the skin, you can kind of get away with buying conventional if you're looking to save a little bit of money. But for packaged food, like organic's almost a must for me
Mm-hmm.
because I've seen how a lot of this stuff gets made, and there's a lot of additives in the processing of the food that don't get labeled, and as a consumer, you would never know were in there unless it was
Yeah.
organic. And even with things like stevia or natural flavors. What's the one like? Oh yeah, Element. The electrolyte packets had like
Mm-hmm.
maltodextrin in it, which is like a carrier for the flavor that they use. Like that's the other thing about natural flavors. It's like, all right, it needs something to like hold on to a carrier. So if it's liquid, it's usually like an oil. So it could be like canola oil or something cheap. And then if it's in a powder form, like it could be, GMO corn or maltodextrin and things like that. And so I think for me, organic and packaged food means a lot. The heavy metal stuff is a very long answer. I think it's something I concern myself with a little less unless I'm feeding it to my kids, which it has a lot more impact on children. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll look for anything that is over the Prop 65, which is the California standard, which is the strictest in the United States, should have a Prop 65 warning on it. So some brands have gotten cute and put like a QR code and try to hide behind it, but it should be a universal badge with like a warning symbol that's an exclamation mark with a triangle. And it should
Mm.
be like, hey, like California Prop 65 warning, this could cause reproductive harm or cancer. The cute things that brands do are like, scan the California residents, like scan the QR code to learn more.
Mm.
So I think Lovebird's one of the few brands I know that's a grain-free product that is Prop 65 compliant. And we've kind of built our own supply chain to source the lowest heavy metal possible ingredients, third-party test for them. So they come from small family farmers. with healthy soil. And I think there's two parts to that, right? I'm not getting the bad stuff, which is great,
Yeah.
but you're also getting nutrient dense soil that's not
Yeah.
over farmed or over tilled or overused, or was close to a manufacturing plant and there's lead leaking into the soil and therefore it gets into your food. Um, so you get more nutrient dense food, and it's devoid of all these things that could potentially be harmful to your health. But I don't know. I mean, it's like tuna fish, has mercury, right? And you see brands like Safe Catch or others that, test for it, but it still has it in it,
Hmm.
regardless. And so I think that's when you have to be careful. It's like, hey, if you're eating tuna fish every single day for a month, like
Yeah.
go get your heavy metals tested, right? There's a ton of great direct to consumer, like Function Health or others. If you have your own like integrative medicine doctor, they can just order these tests and just see, like, get your baseline. And like, you might find like, hey, I felt off. Oh, it's because I have high levels of mercury and I've been eating a ton of tuna fish. And so maybe I should pull back on that. And I think the
Yeah.
cheat code there is like the smaller the fish, the less the mercury. So if you're eating, I think like the skipjack tuna is probably a little lower in heavy metals than like the albacore. And sardines are like the lowest because they're super small. So there's less accumulation in that fish. So that's a little bit of a tangent. Like it's a lot, and we're kind of flying in the face of like simplicity. But for
Yeah.
me, it's always real food first,
Yeah.
organic and packaged food, organic and produce if I'm eating the skin. And if I can afford it, I'll buy the organic avocado as well, or banana. And just try to keep it simple at that level. And then I would just get baseline testing done and see what your body, has. Maybe you have great baselines and you're fine. Maybe you have elevated mercury. Then you should look into like, why is that? And just get a
Hmm.
sense and have it be a little bit more personalized.
Yeah, yeah. No, I am like eating this up. I love like the science and all the little details. And I know some people are like, "Oh my gosh, you said keep it simple and now you're like talking about all of these things and like I'm getting stressed out." But I think like you mentioned like any sort of functional doctor or practitioner where you can do the tests if you're feeling off or like if you have the ability to getting a baseline like you said, because there's nothing more frustrating than trying to do something in the name of health, thinking that
Mhm.
you're picking something, a product or a food like tuna, for example, like, oh, tuna should be healthy. And then actually like you're deteriorating your health in a different way. Like there's nothing more frustrating than that. And then, you can kind of give the like, well, I'm just gonna throw my hands up and like forget it. I'm just gonna eat what I want. And so there are tools for people,
Mhm.
to make sure like, okay, you're spending time and money and resources on these products that are healthy for you to like make sure it's
Mhm.
still supportive of your
Yeah,
body.
100%.
Okay, shifting to business a little bit before I let you go, has there been a big like pinch me moment for you as a founder where you're like, oh my gosh, like how is this real? How is this my life with Lovebird cereal?
It's an interesting question. I feel like I don't do a great job like celebrating things. Like we've
Yeah.
had a lot of growth, and I think for me, like the work just doesn't stop. Like I'm truly on a mission to like clean up cereal. I know some people look at that and like I roll their eyes, but like for me, it actually means something. And I'm trying to not only clean up cereal, but also redefine the role of brands in our modern lives. Like if you remember or learned of the origin of a brand, right? Like it was originally people marking their cattle or putting their names on coins or putting their names on whatever they sold, and it was a person that stood behind a product, right? The brand was the person, and it signified trust that if something went wrong, there was somebody I could go to make it right. And right now I feel like brands have become like a little like pop culture. Big food brands have become faceless corporations, and it's just like, oh, it's just all fun, 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 fun. But like food, like our food system has never been, we've never had more food but less nutrition. And
Mm,
it's because we just sell products with the same three ingredients over and over and over again. And then there's like new food brands that come in that are great, and then they sell to the big food parent. And so for me, it's like, how do I break that cycle and become an agent of change and clean up food? Like, I don't want to sell to a big food company. Like, my goal is not to like get big and like sell the company. Like, my goal is to get big, and that means that we're cleaning up the grocery store. That means we're making Lovebird more accessible for people, and we're driving real change. Like my biggest pinch me moment is when people leave positive reviews of Lovebird and are like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't realize that real food like you're allowing me to eat cereal again, and I have such fond like memories, and it's healthy and it's clean, and what else can you make to like clean up other things in the grocery store?" And really just people becoming aware of what they're eating. Like we talked a lot about like the rabbit hole you can go down to, and like what is clean, what ingredients, additives, chemicals you should watch out for. But I think for me, it's really just reading ingredients and knowing what you're putting in your body is power. And when you have that power, you have the power to be the healthiest version of you. And health is a means to an end. And that end is for you to decide what you want to do with your life. But a healthy life enables you to reach your full potential. And that step starts with one step, which is like reading ingredients and understanding the power of food. Because I think, as you said, right, like you could throw your hands up and be like, oh my goodness, this is overwhelming. I don't know where to start. And a lot of people never get started. But if you just take that first step and be like, hey, there are 10 things I eat 80% of my diet of. I'm going to clean up those things and get the best versions of those, and then just start the process. And that to me is like the pinch me moment when people take control of their health and take back their power. Because I truly believe that we all vote with our dollar, right? When you go into that grocery store, it's a voting machine. And are you going to vote for PepsiCo? Are you going to vote for Lovebird? Are you going to vote for, Buzzbee on Cheerios? Are you going to vote for Lovebird? Are you going to vote for Coconut Cult? Are you going to vote for what brand do you want to see more of in the store and help grow? And that's how change happens, right? Like Lovebird is a brand I care a lot about, with a mission I care a lot about, but it's all about the people that support it. Because without that, there is no Lovebird. And so my biggest pinch me moments are when people like join the mission, and feel the same way about cleaning up our food system.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, kind of the recent petition, I guess not quite as recent anymore, but like getting the red food dye, out of the food system, like that is like, wow, like, an average consumer is like woken up to this thing. It's not only people who are like super, super plugged into the health and wellness space. And I think that gives some momentum to brands like yours and other clean food brands that have started off on their own. And you obviously you have to start small. It's where you start, but that there is like hope for this like massive growth and change to make our world a healthier place. So it's very evident in talking to you and hearing you talk about it that you're very passionate about it, and we need more of that. So thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, I got a couple wellnessy rapid fire questions to wrap us up. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, morning or evening workout?
Morning.
Running or walking?
Walking.
Lifting or body weight?
Lifting.
Juice or smoothie?
Ooh, smoothie.
Coffee or matcha?
Matcha.
Salad or bowl?
Bowl.
Pizza or pasta?
Ooh, pizza.
Tacos or quesadilla?
Tacos.
An early riser or night owl?
I'm an aspirational early riser, but I find myself staying up too late. But I have to remind myself frequently just to go to bed.
Yes.
But yeah, I wish I was more of an early riser every day.
Sleep, an important part of health,
Yeah, who knew?
Well, Parker, it has been such a pleasure getting to chat all things health and Lovebird with you. For people who are listening, where can they follow along online, and where can they get their hands on your products?
Eat Lovebird on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. Lovebirdfoods.com to check out our products, and we're sold nationwide at Whole Foods, Sprouts, really anywhere across the country you can find Lovebird, and coming to a few other retailers next year that everyone should get excited about.
That's awesome. And I can't wait I'll have my eyes peeled for your next product that you teased.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Parker. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Parker of Lovebird Cereal. I found it so fascinating to get a peek behind the curtain of the healthier CPG industry, learn a little bit more about his world of entrepreneurship, and of course, learn so much more about what to look for in our products at the grocery store. Before we go, I'd love to read to you another podcast review left by Ore. He wrote, Health by Haven makes nutrition, fitness, and overall well-being approachable and inspiring. Each episode is packed with practical tips and motivating insights that keep me coming back for more. A must listen for anyone looking to live a healthier, more balanced life. Oh, Ore, thank you so much. You're so kind. And I love when I get to read these reviews, and I want to read your review on the next podcast episode. So if you have a few moments, if you can go to Apple Podcasts and write a quick little review for the Health by Haven podcast, if you've been enjoying listening, it would really mean so much to me. It helps the show find new listeners so that we can help them live their healthiest lives. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Health by Haven podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to give the show a 5-star rating and leave a review. It makes such a huge difference in reaching new people and spreading the joy of healthy living. I would also be so appreciative if you subscribe to the show in the listening app of your choice so you never miss an episode. Your support truly means the world to me. Have a happy, healthy day, and I'll talk to you again soon.